right, everybody. We go live in 5. Grab your coffee, grab your seats, hit the share button on the social media. 4 minutes. 3 minutes and 47, and I'm not counting. Thanks, guys.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Free Spiritual Community. We are a community for addicts and loved ones of addicts and spiritual refugees. We are creating a space for recovery and healing and spiritual connection. And spoiler alert, I'm not Reverend Ryan Kennedy. My name is Noelle Holskin, and I'm on staff here at Free. So I'm going to be taking us through a 4-week series on the power of now throughout the month of July while Ryan is on his sabbatical leave for the entire month. He just got back from Florida and is enjoying his time in the sunshine, I'm sure. So tonight, if it's your first night here, right outside this door we have welcome bags. There's some fresh roasted wagon coffee in those bags. There's a little bit about what we do here at Free Spiritual Community, what wagon coffee does, so please grab one on your way out, those welcome bags. We also have connect cards at our giving stations. These help us keep in contact with you, get your email, your information, so you can get our news blast and keep up to date with all the events that we're having, so please grab one of those as well. First step for our announcements, this coming Saturday, July 16th, we have our Sip and Shop event. This is local artisans and vendors in the area are coming. We will be in the free cafe right next door. The cafe will be open. This event will be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. next Saturday. So just come and grab a cup of coffee, come grab some earrings, or just whatever our local vendors have for us. So that's next Saturday. The day after, on Sunday, the 17th, we're going to be having a regeneration day. And this is going to be at Elevate Recovery Homes. It's a sober living home. And they're going to be there's going to be chickens and goats and meditation and acupuncture. And it's just celebrating the rebirth and the growth within sobriety. And so that'll be at Elevate Recovery Home. But you can find all of the information on Free Spiritual Community on our website. So check that out. Tickets are there, and it's donation-based. So it's from $5 to $25 donation that day, next Sunday. And our last event, we're going to be doing another before service party on July 23rd. So we'll be kicking this off at 5 p.m. We'll go from 5 to 7, July 23rd. So we'll have Crumbles cookies. So we hope you all can come out and grab a cup of coffee. The cafe will be open, and grab a Crumbles cookies and celebrate with us. Well, if you're new here with us tonight at Free, how we kick off every service is with celebrations. We want to lift up the good stuff, whether it's a sobriety birthday or a new baby in the community or, anything. We just want to celebrate with you. So Jason here is going to pass around the mic. If you could just raise your hand in service, and online is going to take 3 minutes and just drop what they're celebrating in the comments. So we'll take 3 minutes for our celebrations.
World, wake me up to another good morning, time to go. Got that smile upon my face, 'cause there's excitement in the chase, this I know.
Hi, I'm Amanda, and we just celebrated our 35th anniversary on the 3rd.
35 years married, that's incredible. Congratulations, you guys. Lex and Amanda, lifting that up for sure. What other celebrations do we have in the house tonight?
I'm Austin, and I got 30 days sober a week ago today.
Austin, right on. Congratulations. Craig, do you have a celebration for us, please, sir? You've got a big one.
Craig, alcoholic. I did 1 year on July 5th.
1 year sober. Congratulations, Craig. That's a big one. Love you, buddy. Any other celebrations?
Hey guys, this is Chris. I just celebrated 6 months clean and sober this last week.
Oh, Chris, right on. That's amazing. Congratulations, Chris, and all your help back there in the tech team. We appreciate you. Any other celebrations in the house tonight? Oh, another one in the back.
Trisha, 90 days clean.
90 days. Congratulations, Trisha. We're lifting that up for sure.
I am Molly, and I just celebrated 60 days yesterday.
Molly, right on. We're lifting that up for sure. About 50 seconds left. Any other celebrations in the house tonight that we can lift up? Oh, okay.
I'm Dan, 90 days.
90 days sober. Congratulations, Dan. We're lifting that up for sure. That's amazing. Any last celebrations? Thank you so much, Jason. No, I'll give her the screen one. Kira's going to join me up here tonight.
Hello.
Sweet friend, Kira. It's good to have you up here.
Thanks.
This is your first time ever doing celebrations.
It is. I think it's my first time up here at all.
That's a big step. That's great. We'll lift that up for sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's a big step for Kira. All right, let's kick off these celebrations.
Jesselyn, my fiance, has been sober for 37 days and counting. His strength and determination is inspiring.
We're lifting that up for sure. That's incredible. 37 days sober. Cindy Rapp, celebrating our new dog, Hope. She is a blessing for our family. We'll lift up new dogs and new family members for sure. Oh man, that's exciting.
NC Jackalope. I'm Jackie, and I have a job interview next week for a position I'm super excited about.
Awesome. Jackie, we're going to lift that up for sure. A new job interview? Love that. Stephen, daughters and grandchildren home for the holiday. That's great.
Awesome.
We're going to lift that up.
Good
And that's
stuff.
the red dot. That means that we're done here. So thank you so much for joining me up here. Thank you, my dear. If you all know Kira, you know that that was a big step for her, so lift her up for sure. All right, you guys, we're kicking off a 4-week series tonight on the power of now. We've got a new video for you to check out. So tonight we're kicking off a 4-week series on the power of now. And the series is based off a book by Eckart Tolle titled The Power of Now. And many of you know every summer we have a book study here at Free. And last summer, Reverend Ryan and Danny Colella, who puts all together our digital content for us, we got together and we sat down to discuss what book we were going to read for that summer. And Ryan wanted to do Faith After Doubt by Brian McLaren. How many of y'all remember that series and were there last summer? Yep, that was a good one. So Brian wanted to do Faith After Doubt, and I wanted to do The Power of Now, and so we compromised and we did Faith After Doubt. And the irony is not lost on me that here we are a year later, we're doing The Power of Now on our Tuesday book study, and I have the opportunity to preach a 4-week series on this book during the month of July. God sure has a sense of humor. So whether you're an addict or a loved one of addict or a spiritual refugee, this series is for you. And over the next 4 weeks, we're going to dive into the power of now and what it means to live in the present and how to live at peace with unsolved problems. Eckart Tolle tells us that he is just the stranger that has nothing to give us, but asks us to look inside. And tonight, my message is titled, You Already Have It. In 1501, the powers in Florence commissioned a 26-year-old Michelangelo to carve out the greatest sculpture ever created. It was the statue of David. And this biblical figure, David, was created as a symbol of Florence's unyielding independence and commitment to their independence from bigger and stronger cities. Hence, David's eyes fixated eastward towards the city of Rome. The statue of David is Florence's tangible symbol of strength and independence from these outside threats. And it took Michelangelo 17 years to find this massive block of marble to be excavated in northern Tuscany. 17 years. Can you imagine having 17 years worth of patience? I don't even have 17 seconds worth of patience some days, but 17 years of battling your addiction, or 17 years of your loved one battling their addiction, 17 years of being blocked off from God. Some of you have been there. And after finding this block of marble, he began chipping away, day after day and week after week and month after month until just 2 years later, he had finalized this enormous undertaking. And the patience and hard work had paid off as citizens of Florence immediately realized that this 17-foot high statue Michelangelo had carved was a masterpiece for the ages. When the statue was finished, Michelangelo was asked how he knew to carve out David from that block of marble. And he just said he chipped away at the pieces that weren't of David. And then there he stood. Michelangelo took this giant block of Tuscan marble and chiseled away until he uncovered the beauty within. And if we're honest, this is the exact work that we do as addicts and loved ones of addicts and spiritual refugees. This is the work that we do in recovery programs, in trauma therapy, in morning meditation, in prayer, and in yoga. We are chipping away at the pieces that aren't of us, that aren't of God, and then there we stand, chiseling away at our grudges and our insecurities, our fears, our feelings of superiority and inferiority. You know, the ones, the critical and the restlessness voices in our head that they never seem to shut up. How do we gain our access to our statue of David? How do we access our true self, the self that God intended us to be? Well, we do what Michelangelo did. With patience and vigilance, we chisel away the debris obscuring our conscious and our connected selves every day, bit by bit. And I was speaking to a friend this week about her experience as she walked into the Accademia Gallery in Florence for the first time to see the statue of David in person. And the sheer size and force of the statue was emotionally overpowering, and it brought her to tears. Our primary job in life is to unearth, with the persistence and the patience exhibited by Michelangelo, our true self. It's the greatest thing that we can do, not only for ourselves, but for our communities and for the world. That true self that is lurking within you, and I mean every single one of you, is 1,000 times more powerful and more beautiful than the statue of David. And the best part is you already have it. Tonight we're going to dive into a story commonly referred to as Jesus feeds the 5,000. And aside from the resurrection of Jesus Christ himself, this is the only story in Scripture that is in all 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So obviously the Gospel writers consider this to be a pretty significant miracle. And I'm going to read tonight the story out of Luke's Gospel. And Luke's Gospel is one of the synoptic Gospels. And there's 3 synoptic Gospels: Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And these 3 Gospels tell 3 different stories of a similar event, in a similar tone, and in a similar way. You know those movies that they center around one specific day or an event, and they're told from multiple different views, like Pulp Fiction? The synoptic Gospels are just like Pulp Fiction, but without John Travolta and a lot more Jesus. And so when there's these interconnected stories like the book of Matthew and Mark and Luke, we get more layers to the story. Just like if someone offered you a piece of chocolate cake and they offered you a 1-layer piece of chocolate cake and then they offered you 3-layer chocolate cake, which one are you going to choose? 3. Every single time we're going to choose 3. And so the more layers there are, the richer the experience becomes. So although I'll be reading from Luke's Gospel tonight, we're going to be adding layers to our chocolate cake from the other Gospels. So in Luke chapter 9, verse 10, when the apostles returned, they reported to Jesus what they had done. Then he took them with him, and they withdrew by themselves to a town called Bathsheba. But the crowds learned about it and followed him. He welcomed them and spoke to them about the kingdom of God and healed those who needed healing. So wherever Jesus was going, a crowd was following him. And they didn't know who he was or what he was about. They just knew that when this man showed up, blind people could see. And what they knew was when he showed up, the lame could walk and the deaf could hear. So wherever Jesus came, they went. In verse 12, late in the afternoon, the 12 came to him and said, send the crowd away so they can go to the surrounding villages and countrysides and find food and lodging because we are in a remote place here. Jesus replied, "You give them something to eat." And they answered, "We only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, unless we go and buy food for all this crowd." Because, the disciples, they weren't good enough how they were right then. So let's pause there for a moment. We're tempted to believe, as the disciples did, that we have nothing to offer in the face of overwhelming need. Hundreds of people are dying from overdoses every day, and we have nothing to offer except a few dollars and a shoulder to cry on. There are thousands of people living on the street as a result of their addiction, and we have nothing to offer except prayers and a few blankets. In these situations, who do we put our trust in? And where do we believe that the power really lies? Is it in self-will, or is it in God's will? And in Matthew's gospel, another layer of our chocolate cake, scripture tells us that there was about 5,000 men in this crowd. And scholars say it specifies that there was 5,000 men because there was also women and children there too. So there's probably about 15,000 hungry people that day. You guys, Red Rocks Amphitheater fits about 10,000 people. So this is 1.5 Red Rocks amphitheaters worth of people starving and standing in front of Jesus and the 12 disciples. And the disciples, they're doing what any competent lieutenant would do for their leader. They assess the situation. They identified the problem before it turns into a crisis, and they recommended a tangible and a material solution. We only have 5 loaves and 2 fish unless we go and buy more. Have you ever focused on what you don't have? And then tried to solve that problem with self-will, with worldly possessions, with something outside of yourself? How well did that work out for you? I don't know about for you, but for me, that didn't work out for me too well. When I was in active addiction, I quickly learned that the only thing that was worse than my problem was my solution to my problem. Like, you can't fix a sick brain with a sick brain. It doesn't work so well. And at 3 years sober, that still applies today more than ever. In verse 14, but Jesus said to his disciples, "Have them sit down in groups of about 50 each." And the disciples did so, and everyone sat down. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke them. Then he gave them to the disciples to distribute to the people. Verse 17, they all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. They were so satisfied that the disciples had to go back and pick up the leftovers because there was an overflow. In Mark chapter 6, another layer of our chocolate cake, Jesus asked the disciples, "Well, what do you have?" And without even giving them a chance to respond, Jesus says, "Well, go look." And he says it just like that. Like if your kid the day after Christmas was like, "Mom, I'm bored." And you say, "Well, what do you have?" And before you even give them a chance to respond, because you know whatever response that they're going to give you is going to get them in trouble, you tell them to go and look. Because if you just go and look, you'll see that the thing that you're complaining about is something that you already have access to. What you're looking for is already within you. See, everything changes when we put our 5 and 2 into God's hands. And the great thing about God, verse 16 says, that Jesus took the mere gifts of man. He took that little bit, and he didn't say, "Come back when you have more." He took those 5 loaves and those 2 fish, and he blessed it and broke it, and he kept giving it to the disciples, and it kept going and going and going, and the disciples didn't understand how a little bit that they had in the beginning had become so much, and their entire crowd, that 1.5 Red Rocks amphitheater worth of people, were satisfied. And they were so satisfied that there was 12 to-go boxes, 1 basket for each disciple to take home, an overflow of the blessing and the grace of God. You, as you are, sitting in front of me today or online tonight, you are enough. You are 1,000 times enough. And you've been thinking that you don't have enough time or enough sobriety or talent or money, and God is whispering in your ear tonight, you already have it. You're enough. Just give it to me and let me multiply what you already have. And listen, I can be the worst about placing my faith in God to see me through seasons that I don't think I have what it takes. I don't know about you, but as an alcoholic and as a human being, I have this disease of perception. And if I don't see God working in my life in the exact moment that I think God needs to work into my life, it's like it never happened at all. My entire life, I've been crucified between these two thieves. And one is the past, which carries guilt and regret and resentment and bitterness. And the other is the future, which carries unease and anxiety and tension. And what I have found is when the clamors of the world, when they start to cave in, when that committee gets a little loud, or when the present gets a little too overwhelming, God places these moments in my path as a reminder to live in the now, as a reminder that in this moment, right here, right now, I already have everything that I need. You know, a month or so ago, I attended an art walk in downtown Denver, and it centered around addiction and recovery nonprofit organizations. And it was one of those studios where the walls are dripping with art and jewelry, and the room is just buzzing with energy. And I'll never understand that pull that someone has towards a piece of art. You know, that moment when someone else's heart on a canvas, it speaks directly to yours. But the moment that I saw it in this gallery, I immediately recognized it. And so in the middle of this party, in the sea of people, this piece hung in the corner of the gallery, and it tugged at me. And after a handful of moments had passed, the artist, who had about 30 years sober, she approached me, and she unpacked this piece for me. She had reused canvas strips of old pieces of art, you know, ones that she no longer cared for, that no longer spoke to her. And she reworked them on this canvas. She had repurposed what she had outgrown and what was no longer serving her, and this portrait now wears those recycled pieces perfectly. She already had what she needed to create this piece. She just needed to rework a few things, to do a little rearranging, and to turn it over to God and let Him finalize the masterpiece. This piece of art, it now hangs in the Free Staff office as a reminder to live into the now, and as a reminder that you already have what you need. You know, maybe for you, it's to stop striving to be more, to trust your internal wisdom with what God has given you. Maybe for you, it's about not shutting down when things get hard and putting your faith in the one that has all knowledge and power. With God's help, we can take what we already have and turn it into something much more beautiful, something that can bless the next person. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Free spiritual community. You already have it. But what is it? It is the solution to your problems. It is serenity. It is the now. Sure, maybe you have some chipping away to do or some reworking with what you already have, but please hear me when I say that serenity does not mean that we have zero problems or issues. Serenity is about living at peace with unsolved problems and trusting God to multiply your 5 and 2. So as I close, I want y'all to reflect for 60 seconds on one problem today, right now, that you can turn over to God. You can put it in His hands, and let Him multiply. All right. For those of you who are new here with us tonight, the next portion of our service is the storyteller portion. Before I bring up the woman who's going to be our storyteller, I just want to say a couple words about her. But I'll never forget being in early recovery and being in a room full of people. I probably had a day or two of sobriety. And this woman, she collected 6 months, and I just couldn't understand how anyone could get 6 months of sobriety. Like, I needed case examples of women who were walking the walk and talking the talk so I could be able to start in my own recovery. You know, like those motherly figures in our sobriety journey that pick us up when we're down and our shoulder to cry on. We all need those in this journey, and I'm just so grateful that Susan has been one of those women for me, and I'm just really glad you're here. So if you would just join me up here, I would love it. Susan, everyone. Make sure to hold it.
Hello.
Ooh, there you are.
Hi.
Hi, Susan. I'm so glad you're here with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to talk a little bit about your first sobriety date was November 2016. Or I'm sorry, was it 2006? 2006. So November 2006. So take me back to the months leading up to November 2006 and what that looked like for you. Like when did alcohol start to become a coping mechanism for you?
Well, I think it always was a coping mechanism, and it was always a vehicle to help me feel more confident, prettier, funnier, more at ease with people. Because in my early adult years, I never felt comfortable. I never felt good enough. I never felt like I fit in, even though on the outside, I was all of those things. And my mother would be the first one to be very confused when I share with her about how uncomfortable I was and how unworthy I felt and not smart enough, and how I didn't meet up to her expectations. And she would say, that just makes me crazy. I don't understand. You were this, you were that, you had this, you did this, you did that. And I said, but you were in here.
Yep, the highlight reel looked really good, but you didn't know what was going on in my soul. Yep.
Right. And the rest of the world was the same. Mm-hmm. So, let's jump forward to, I moved to Aspen, Colorado in 1981. And, right out of the gate, I was living the Aspen life. Sometimes better than others, but, I took advantage of everything that Aspen had to offer, including the drugs and alcohol, which were abundant. And, the people that made Aspen happen took care of the people that made Aspen happen. So it was very easy to do if you knew the right people. And for some reason, I just knew the right people. But I met my ex-husband there. I was a private chef working for a family for about 7 years. And granted, even though I had this persona of a successful young caterer, and I cooked for all kinds of famous people. We had Michael Jordan in the house one time, and a handful of retired Playboy bunnies, and you name it. We had a plethora of the Hollywood elites, but the whole time I had this other side of me that nobody could see. I had a bottle of Grand Marnier under the kitchen counter, and I always had a bindle in my pocket. And that's what kept me going. That's what kept that fire burning inside of me for day and night. And so I met this man, and I thought he was the one. And we eventually got married, and he was a little bit younger than me, and he wasn't quite ready to have children. But one day he came home after spending an evening with a friend and his newborn baby while his wife worked, and he said, "Honey, you know, there's no perfect time to have a baby, and I really want one. Let's do this." And, you know, I think I was maybe 37, 38 at the time, I was very happy about that. You know, I thought I waited for the right person at the right time to have the right baby. Of course, you know, alcoholic thinking. My plan, my way. So we ended up having this beautiful child. His name is Nicholas. However, from the very day we brought him home, things were so much harder than I ever dreamed they would be. We had a very difficult labor that was about 36 hours long. He was a little smushed when he came out, and he needed to be on oxygen for about 3 weeks. And my husband and my mother never really got along very well. And there was some tension and some argument about the whole birth process and why they didn't do a C-section, et cetera. But the day we brought my child home, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and they started arguing. Well, eventually he threw her shoes out the front door, kicked her out of our house, and my mom had to go home early. And I was there, what I felt like, all by myself with this little baby who cried every single day, all day long, for 3 months straight. I didn't sleep, I didn't eat, I barely showered and took care of myself. And one day my husband came home from his fly fishing trip. That's what he did. He was a fly fishing guide for the rich and famous. And he said, "You know, you need to go back to work." And I said, well, I felt like I am working, but, you know, me being the people pleaser, I got 2 catering gigs back to back on the weekend. And Nicholas and I were driving from Snowmass to Carbondale to do some shopping for our next catering in between the two. And he was screaming bloody murder, and I was just crawling out of my skin. I couldn't listen to him scream anymore. And I was so overwhelmed and so tired and so, how am I gonna do this and take care of this little boy? I don't understand. Everyone else has family around them, nannies, babysitters, you know, sisters, mothers. I have none of that. A lot of despair. And I remember screaming, "Just shut up!" And I pulled over on the side of the road, and I felt so horrible and like such a horrible mother. And I got him out of his car seat, and he'd had a little accident. And so I had to put him in the back of my car and clean him up and change his clothes. And I looked at that precious little boy who was feeling better by then, and I said, "You know what, buddy, when we get home, you're gonna have a bottle, and I'm gonna have a martini." Mm. And you know, I did just that.
Yep.
And that stress and overwhelmedness, that ease and comfort, you know, that worked.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And so that brought you to 2006 when you went to treatment.
Right, it just escalated from there. You know, every day it was a little earlier in the morning.
Yep.
More throughout the day, passing out in his bed at night, and finally the gig was up. Mm-hmm. And I needed a lot of help.
So you walked into treatment in 2006, mm-hmm. and you were sober from 2006 to 2013. Mm-hmm. So talk about that moment in 2013, that mental blank spot that you had in 2013 that led to that relapse, and what was going on within your recovery and what your sobriety looked like that led to that blank spot.
Yeah, you know, in 7.5 years, I had to relocate because I was excused from my marriage, my home, and my motherhood. I went back to treatment, and I moved into sober living, and so I recreated myself. I did what was suggested of me. I had wonderful women in my life that sponsored me. I worked the steps. I was of service at my home group. I did everything that I was supposed to do one day at a time to stay sober. And I went through a custody battle because my ex-husband wanted to take Nicholas and move out of state because he was going to get married. And I fought like hell to keep him in Colorado. I did a lot of step work throughout that whole process. I did what I needed to do to stay sober and to stay true to this program. And I didn't drink when I didn't get to keep him here. And I remember the noise I made when I got the email from my attorney saying, "I'm sorry, Susan, but he's going to go with Chris." It was gut-wrenching, and just, I felt like, again, I wasn't worthy of being this child's mother. Felt like one more punishment. So, I didn't drink over that, and Nicholas went to live with his dad in California, and we established regular parenting, and it was working really, really well. And I was, instead of every other weekend, I got bigger chunks of time. I got 6 weeks in the summer and every other holiday and things like that. So things were really good. I was in a relationship at the time, and I ended it because the common welfare did not come first. And, I was working in a wonderful company. I had a great job, a beautiful home. My son was in my life. And I started whittling away at my program because it wasn't, well, it was, but it didn't feel as vital to me. Things were so even.
Life started to get good.
Life was good. So that mental blank spot wasn't some momentous occasion. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I made myself a beautiful meal. It was cooking in the oven, baking in the oven, manicotti, and I just thought a glass of red wine would go really, really well with this. And it was no mental tug of war. It was one thought 1 minute, and 10 minutes later it was on the table, and I, before I even drank it, I could feel what it was going to do for me. And that's what happened.
And you went to chase the effect of what it was going to do for you.
Yeah.
I love when you said it was no mental tug of war, like it just this blank spot when we're not doing these seemingly unrelated things, these rituals that condition our spiritual being, and then all of a sudden, there's this mental blank spot, and it's, oh my goodness, you're off to the races, and it's just that quick.
Right.
So you described your first stint of sobriety, we'll call it, as mechanical, and the second, almost 4-year sober stint as more authentic and connected community. And so what's the difference between the two, the 7 years versus the 3.5 now?
Well, I think for me, the biggest difference is my connectedness, not just with the AA community, but with people in my life in general. Honesty is extremely important to my sobriety, and I have learned to not just tell the truth, but to be authentic in who I am and what's going on with me in any given moment, and to use my voice, because for years and years and years, I was not comfortable using my voice. I lived with a narcissistic personality for so long that I didn't speak up. I thought if I left my ex-husband, I would lose everything. So my solution was to drink myself half to death, and then I lost everything anyway. So I think this time, to be honest about what's going on with me and about what my drinking looked like and why I drank, the ugliest, down to the ugliest detail, because if I don't acknowledge that, if I don't understand what my alcoholism means to me, if I don't share that with other people, I believe I will drink again.
Yep, absolutely. So what does it mean for you today to turn your 5 and 2 over to God, or that chipping away process? Like, what does that look like for you today?
Well, I think my life today has opened up into different avenues. I have a solid foundation and a church family where I choose to worship, and I'm in a life group. I serve at my church, and I have real life relationships with these people where we share the struggles of, how we represent Christ, right? There's my favorite saying is, I'm not going to go to church on Sunday and be an asshole on Monday. Sorry, I said it. That's just my truth. I have to walk the walk, just like I can't go to AA 6 nights a week and not walk the program and live the program. And I didn't get sober to live in AA. I got sober to live out there and to show other people how this works.
Yeah.
Same with my walk with God. I don't talk about who my God is or where my church is. I live the way I worship with all my heart and all my soul so that my outsides match my insides and that people are attracted to that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how Jesus worked. Mm-hmm. People were attracted to him.
Yep, that attraction rather than the promotion. Mm-hmm. Susan, what's the word of hope to that person out there who's struggling with, I don't have enough or I'm not enough? What would be the word of hope that you would give them?
The word of hope is that the willingness is all it takes. As sick as I was and as broken as I was, and with all the loss and all the heartache and all the failures and just the despair that I was living in for 5 years in between sobriety, I knew what this program could do for me. I knew what that willingness could do for me because I had been there. I knew that there would have to be some changes, but anybody can do this if they want their outsides to match their insides. And it has to start in here.
It's an inside job.
Yep. And it teaches me how to love myself, and anybody can do that if they do this work. And if they work at a relationship with God. God is not Santa Claus for me. He doesn't give me everything on my list. But what he gives me is so much better than I could have ever put on my list. Mm-hmm. And I think that the most profound thing I've noticed is me getting out of my own way the last 4 years has proven that I am worthy, that I am enough, and that God has big plans for me.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you for joining me up here, Susan.
You're
welcome.
Been so wonderful. Can we talk about this?
Oh, I would
guy?
love for you to talk about your portrait.
So, part of my work has been getting over the shame and guilt of not having the motherhood that I'd always dreamed of and that I had hoped for. And, I think that a lot of women in recovery can relate to that. Mothers that had to hide their drinking and that had to juggle all the things that mothers have to juggle and still, feed the monster. And what this picture represents, Nicholas was 2.5 in this picture, and his face is painted like a tiger. And he's playing with his kitty, Sunshine, on the floor with a toy that his daddy made him out of fly fishing material. And what nobody can see in this picture, or what nobody knows about this picture, is that his mama started drinking vodka at 7 in the morning and painted his face and was thinking that was okay.
You did a good job. I mean, you did a pretty good job.
I was, at noon, I don't think it would have looked that good.
It was still pretty early. It wasn't noon yet. So it looks like a tiger. But
yeah, but I treasure this picture because this reminds me every day that there's so many of us walking around there that nobody knows the despair and brokenness that are on the inside. But with God and whatever program you choose to engulf yourself in, and if you tell the truth, no matter what, you don't have to have this picture in your life. It can be authentic and good and full of love, you know, in God's way, not Susan's way. Susan's way didn't work so well.
Absolutely.
But thank you really for having me tonight. It's really good to be with you.
It's good to have you here on a Saturday night, Susan. Thank you so much. I love you.
Love you.
Appreciate you being here. I'll give this to you after. For your insides to match your outsides. That's definitely a word. All right. Well, similar to our celebrations at the beginning of service, we close out every service with heartaches. We want to lift you up and pray for you during your hard times. So similar to celebration, Jason is going to walk around with a mic. Just raise your hand. And whatever we can pray for you for in this season, for you or your family or your friends, let us be there for you. So our online community is going to take 3 minutes online. Write in the comments and take 3 minutes for heartaches.
Hey guys, Bobby with the tech team, working with my man Chris back there. Just want to lift him up in prayer and his brother in prayer who's going to have some open heart surgery here within the next week. So if we could just all help Chris and his family and lift him up during this time.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Bobby. Chris, we're lifting up you and your family. We're praying for you, buddy. We appreciate all you do here. Thank you. Who else? Heartaches we can lift up. Oh, here's one. Jason's getting in his work tonight.
Hey everyone, my name's Adam, and I'm an addict. I broke up with my partner of 1 year about a week ago. So just trying to work through that.
Lifting you up, Adam. Some tough stuff. We love you and we're here for you, praying for you for sure. Who else can we pray for tonight?
My name's Landon. This is my first time here. I just recently lost my job due to alcohol, and I'm trying to get over that, and I'm 24 hours sober, and I'm doing the best I can.
Right on, Landon. Congratulations on 24 hours sober. We're lifting you up. We're really glad you're here tonight, Landon.
Really glad you're here. This is Mimi. My friend Lindsay McClune just lost her mom to alcoholism. She was 66, so let's lift up Lindsay and the rest of her family tonight. And scared my mom is on her way to that, still struggling in her cups tonight. So please pray for her still.
Yeah, thanks.
She finds her way. Thanks.
Lifting up Lindsay and her family. Prayers for her. Burning. Last minute. We've got about 15 seconds. All right. Well, I think Chris Watson's going to join me up here this evening. For those of you who don't know this wild man, he is our, what is your title? Like a maintenance, just a utility man, free spiritual community utility man.
Glorified janitor. Facilities manager.
You've really got some humility on you tonight. No, you do so much for us. We're so thankful for you. So why don't you take the first one, Chris?
Am I standing on the right side?
I don't do the Ryan Kennedy dance, so you can stand wherever you want, whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Allie, I'm requesting prayer for my son, please, who's learning some big, tough life lessons now. Allie, prayers for you. You know, we know how those parents and those of us that have family, we know how hard that can be and how tough that can be, especially for our kids that we want to fix, and sometimes we just have to let them do it. So prayers for you.
Yeah,
prayers
lifting you up, Allie and her son. Yep, absolutely. All right.
That's
it. Well, Chris, it was short and sweet, but thank you for joining me up here.
Word.
If y'all know Chris Watson, he doesn't end anywhere without saying word. So we appreciate you, Chris. Chris got a round of applause. That's great. Well, you guys, thank you for being here tonight, and we thank you for all your support here at Free Spiritual Community, and we know that giving is a spiritual practice for a lot of you, and so we just thank you for that. And for those of you who don't know, we have 2 giving boxes around Free that are appropriately titled Giving above them. And then for those of you online, there's 3 ways to give online. And the first is through our app. It's Free Spiritual Community app. And so you can download this free app. All of our content is on there, all of our sermons, news about what's going on. It's a great app to have to keep you in the loop. The second one is at freespiritualcommunity.com under the Give tab. And then the third is to text the number on your screen, and there's just a couple simple directions. Those are the 3 ways to give online. So we're going to go out with a prayer tonight, but I would love to bring up my buddy Jim to take us out in prayer. So if Jim, if you would join me up here. And I asked Jim what prayer he wanted to go out with this evening, and what prayer did you want to go out with?
Serenity prayer.
The serenity prayer. So let's take a moment of silence just for the still suffering alcoholic and the suffering hearts in and outside of this room. And then whenever you're ready, Jim, if you would take us out in a prayer.
Sure.
Thanks.
God,
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you so much, Jim. I'll take that. I love you. Well, you guys, thank you for being here tonight. Go out in peace tonight and be good to one another. And just remember, it's already with you. So have a good night, guys.